Create an epic weather application using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. All of the source code for today's video will be down below through the GitHub link. The first thing we need to do is go ahead and open Visual Studio Code. If you guys need help getting that set up, I have a video where I walk you through the process. Link up to that and down below. Once we have VS Code open, I'm gonna go File, Open Folder, and I'm gonna open the folder where I wanna go ahead and create this project. Once I have that folder opened, I'm gonna go ahead and click I trust the authors, close out of this welcome page. And if you can't see your File Explorer over here, go ahead and click the icon in the top left here and it will open right up. And if you have any errors, go ahead and close out of those now. The first thing we need to do is right click and create a new file, and we're going to call this our index.html. Then we need to create a new folder, and this I will call styles. And inside of this folder, I'll create a styles.css file, and then create one more folder called scripts, and inside of this folder create a new file called scripts.js. And this is going to do it for our project structure here today, so pretty straightforward. And now we can go back to our index.html, go ahead and enter in an exclamation mark. You might have to do it a couple times if it doesn't work, and then go ahead and hit enter, and that will generate us a basic boilerplate for our web application. And here I'm going to change the title to Weather App. And from this point, I can go ahead and start my live server. The one I like to use is called 5Server. If you guys want some great VS Code extensions that you can use, I'll leave a link up top and down below where I show you guys the essentials. But for now, we'll click Go Live to open our live server. And this will give us a new locally hosted server that I will go ahead and move on to the page here. You guys can see, since we haven't created any content at all, it's just a white screen, but you can see where we changed our title here, where it says Weather App. And from this point on, I'm going to have our live server on the right side of the screen with VS Code on the left side of the screen. And I'm going to go ahead and close out of this terminal because we don't need it anymore. And I will go ahead and minimize my File Explorer so I have more space to work here. Now I need to connect my style sheet to my HTML page. So I'll create a link element here with the rel equal to style sheet. And for our href, we need to go into our styles folder and extract our styles.css file. And now our style sheet is connected to our index.html. Next, we need to do the same thing, but for our JavaScript. So we'll create a script element. And in the opening script tag here, we need to create src attribute, make this equal to our scripts folder, and then extract our scripts.js file, and then also include our defer attribute at the end here. And for this app, we are also going to use Font Awesome. So we're going to search for Font Awesome 6, and we need to look for the CDN specifically here. So we'll look for that. And this first link will work. I'll leave a link to this down below in the description for you guys. And you want to go ahead and copy this first link tag and make sure that you put this before your own custom style sheet in your index.html file, and then go ahead and click save. And now we can go ahead and use Font Awesome icons later on in the video. Now that we have everything within our head element set up, we can go within our body element here and start by creating a div with a class of container. Inside of this div, we'll create an h1 and we will include the text weather app, which you can now see appear over here on the right. And if you want to see the code through your live server, go ahead and right click and click inspect here, and you can see all the elements that you have on your page here along with the styling for each element as well. Next, we need to create a form element, but with the ID of weather form. And this will also generate an action attribute, which we will not be using today. So I'll go ahead and delete that. Inside of this form, we need to have an input element, and type equal to text is correct. So we'll leave that alone. Create an ID equal to city input. And then we want to create a placeholder within this input and say enter a city name, just like so, and I'll go ahead and capitalize city here. Now you guys can see our input along with the placeholder text. Underneath our input element, we want to create a button, and we want our type to be equal to submit, and we will include the text get weather. And then underneath our form, we'll create one more div with an ID equal to weather results. And inside of this div, we're not going to include anything other than just a comment for now saying that weather will appear here for now. And then inside of this div is where we're going to dynamically render all the weather that we want to show for a particular city using JavaScript. Before we get to using JavaScript, we need to create our styling here. So first, we want to target our body element, change our font family to Arial, align our text to the center, change our background color here, and we want to include a linear gradient followed by to right, and then these two hex color values. So now you guys can see we're going from left to right, starting with a lighter blue and then going to a darker blue. And then next we want to use color to style our text, and we're going to make all of our text black. Then we want to change our margin property to 0 and our padding to 1 rem here. And then I need to go ahead and make sure I include the colon. Next, I'm going to go ahead and target the container class, and we want to limit how big this is going to get. So we're going to use our max width and change this to 25 rem. And then to center this, we're going to use our margin property, and the first value is going to be 0.25 rem followed by automatic, so we can get that centered with a little bit of margin on the top and bottom. Next, we want to go ahead and change our background color to white so you can see this a little bit better. Change our padding to 1 rem. Change our border radius to 0.5 rem. And we also want to add a slight box shadow. And for our values here, we're going to do 0.25 rem followed by 0.3 rem followed by an RGBA value, and this is just going to be black, so we'll say 3 zeros followed by our opacity, which is going to be 0.1. Next, we're going to target our H1 element, change our font size to 1.5 rem, and target our margin bottom property, make that 1.25 rem. And then our form element, we want to change our display to flex. If you guys need help understanding flex, I have a great video that I'll leave a link to up top and down below that you guys should check out. Then I want to change our gap to 0.5 rem. Now I can target my input element, change the flex property to 1, which will take up all of the remaining space that our button is not using. Change our padding to 0.5 rem. Change our border to 0.1 rem, solid, and a light gray color here. And we also want to change our border radius to 0.25 rem. Next, we're going to go ahead and target our button, change our padding to 1 rem, followed by 1.25 rem, change our border to none, and change our background to this darker blue color. Change our font color to white, change our border radius to 0.25 rem, and change our cursor to a pointer when we hover on it, as you can see here. And now we want to target our button again, but on hover. So what we want to do here is change our background color to a slightly different blue color when we hover on our element. So that's going to do it for all the styling of the elements that you can see right now. But what we're going to do next is create a few more styles that you won't be able to see until we create our JavaScript file. Target our weather results ID, change our margin top property to 1.25 rem. We need to include 5 here. Change our text align to left. And next we want to target our weather results ID again, but specifically the h2 element. And we want to align the text to the center. Next, we want to target the results class that we have not created yet, but we will in a moment. Change our width to 50% and our margin to auto. And now we want to target our weather result class, change our display to flex, align our items to the center, create a gap of 1 rem, and use our text wrap property here and say no wrap, which will keep our content from wrapping onto the next line. And that's going to be it for our styles and our HTML structure. Next, what we need to do is navigate to our scripts.js and start creating our scripts to dynamically render the weather based on the city that you enter in this input here. First, what we need to do is create a constant variable called form. And for this variable, we're going to use document.getElementById to grab our form. So what we'll do is simply use our weather form ID. And if you're confused by what's going on, go ahead and navigate back to your index.html. And what we're doing is we're grabbing this entire element here using its specific ID that we created with HTML here, and we are placing it inside of our form variable. So we need to do this again. So what we'll do is copy this variable here and paste it below. But this time we need to get our input value. So we'll call this city input. And we need to get our city input element. So we'll copy and paste this one more time. And this variable is going to be called our weather result. And we just want to get this empty div here where we're going to actually display the results here. So we'll go ahead and copy the ID, go back to our scripts and just paste it right here. Underneath this, we need to create another variable called API underscore key and make this equal to an empty string. But at this point, we don't have an API key yet. So what we need to do is we need to navigate to our browser, go to open weather here, open weather. And if you guys have not created an account here, go ahead and create a free to use open weather account and then go ahead and sign in. For now, I'll go ahead and log out just so I can show you guys what the sign in process looks like. So now I signed in successfully. What we need to do first is navigate to the API keys portion of this. So once I get here, you guys will see one API key called default. What we want to do is go over here to where it says create new key. And I'm going to go ahead and create a new key called trial for now. And then go ahead and click generate. And then it will create a new API key with the name of trial here. But if you guys just created this account and just created this API key, it's not going to work right off the bat. You need to give it some time, usually about an hour or two before it will actually work. So what I'm going to do is use this weather API that I already created right here and go ahead and copy it since I know that this one is working. But just be mindful that you need to wait a little bit until yours will work. And once we copy that, we want to go back to our weather here and then go back to VS Code and go ahead and paste in our custom API key just like so. And don't try and copy my API keys because I will be deleting these after I create this video. Use our form variable and we want to add an event listener to our form. And this event listener is going to be on submit. So when I click get weather, it's going to enact the callback function that I will create right here. And this needs to be an async function since we're working with APIs. So we'll say async, and then we want to pass in our event object into this asynchronous callback function here. And the only thing we want to use our event object for is to prevent the default submission action. Next, I'm going to create another constant variable called city. Use our city input variable here. And what I want to do is get the value. And then I also want to trim off any white space on the beginning or ending of that value. So we'll use trim here. Next, we need to validate if that input is correct. So we'll use an if statement and we'll say exclamation mark followed by city. So what this does is it's looking to see if this input is empty or not. And if somebody doesn't enter anything into the input before clicking submit, what we want to do is use our weather result variable, and we want to change the inner HTML of it. So we'll say equal to a string, and then we're simply going to pass a short block of HTML code as a paragraph here that says, please enter a city name. And then if something is not entered, I want to kill the rest of the function by saying return. And it's not working at the moment because VS Code tried to autocorrect here to area value max, which I don't want. This needs to just be a value. So if I go ahead and refresh it now and go ahead and click get weather, you guys will see that since I didn't enter anything, it will say, please enter a city name. So if something is entered for our city input, what we want to do is go down below and create a try catch block here, just like so. Inside of this try block, we're going to create a constant variable called response, and this is going to be equal to await. And await is unique to our asynchronous function, and since we're using APIs, what this is going to do is it's going to await the response from the API before continuing to run the JavaScript. And what we want to await is a fetch command, and inside of these parentheses here, what we want to do is include backticks. These are not quotation marks, and they're normally located at the top left of your keyboard. And inside of these backticks is where we want the call for our API to sit. So what we need to do is navigate back to our browser and back to open weather. And from here, we want to navigate to where it says API here. And then what we need to do is find the API document that we're going to be using. We're not going to be using 3.0 today. What we will use is we're going to use the current weather data here. So navigate to that one, click on API doc. And again, I'll link to all of this down below. So down here, there's going to be an area that says built-in API request by city name. So that's the one that we want to go ahead and use. So what I'm going to do is copy this API call right here and go ahead and paste it in between our backticks like so. At the end of this, we need to specify what units we want this to show in. So we'll say and sign followed by units, and we want to make this equal to imperial. So what this will mean is that it's going to show our temperature in Fahrenheit. If you guys want Celsius, go ahead and change this to metric. But for me, I'm in the United States, so I'm going to leave this as imperial. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and copy this API call, and I'm going to open an application called Postman. And if you guys don't have this, I'll leave a link down below where you can install and use this completely for free. And once I'm in Postman, I'm going to open a new folder here. I want to leave this as get, and then I want to paste in, go ahead and close that out. And I want to go ahead and paste in this API call. And then what I want to do is select a city here. So what I'll do is make this equal to Austin. And then I need to go back and copy and paste my API key right here. So I'm going to copy this key, go back to Postman, and paste it right in here where it says API key. And then I'm going to test it by clicking send here. And you guys will know that this API request successfully works if it returns an object with all of this specific weather information. So now you guys can see that we can access this object and display dynamically the current weather and the current condition using whatever data we want from this object that we're getting back. And so now that we know this works, I'm going to go ahead and minimize it. And in this API call, I need to make a few changes. So first, I want to include a $sign before where it says city name. And I want to use this so I can dynamically pass in our city variable here. meaning whatever our user enters in this input. And then I want to do the same thing for the API key. So I'll include a $sign here. And for this, I want to pass our API key variable like so. And underneath our response variable, I want to test if this response actually worked or not. So just like we did above, we'll include an exclamation mark, say response.ok. And what this is doing is it's looking to see if this response is successful or not. So if it is not successful here, what we need to do is throw an error, and then inside of the parentheses here, we will say city not found. So if this code runs because our response is unsuccessful in using this API call here, what this is going to do is throw an error and send us down to the catch block and skip all the rest of the code in our try that we might have here. But if our response is successful, we're going to go ahead and skip this code, go down below, create a new variable called data, and here is where we are going to await our response, and then we can also convert our response into a JSON, which is going to convert the response into a usable object and store it right here within data. Now we can start dynamically rendering out our information. So I'll use our weather result variable, and I want to go ahead and change the inner HTML, and we're once again going to make this equal to backticks like so. Within these backticks, I'm going to create an h2 element using basic HTML like so. But what I want to do now is dynamically render the name of the city. So what I want to do is use a $sign followed by our curly brackets, and then I want to pass in our data and say .name. And if you guys are wondering where this is coming from, we're using our data, which is our response in an object form, and then .name is simply coming from the response. So if we go back to Postman here and I scroll down, you guys will see that name here is going to return Austin. And at this point, I want to do the same thing, but now I want to do it for the country itself. So again, I'm going to use the same format here and start off with data and go .sys.country. And so now if we test it out and I enter San Antonio and say get weather, it's going to render San Antonio and the United States right here. And I can do this for any city, so I'll go ahead and test Los Angeles now. You guys will see that it also provides us with Los Angeles. Next, what we need to do is create a div where we're going to display more specific results. So what I want to do is just go like this using normal HTML. And this is not going to autocorrect for you, so make sure that it's correct if you guys are having any errors. And inside of this div, I want to create a class and make this equal to results. Now I want to create another div, so I'll just copy this, go down below, indent, go ahead and paste that, change our class name to weather result. And then here's where I want to start using Font Awesome. So I'll navigate to Font Awesome 6, navigate to this one. Again, this will be down below the description. And then I want to navigate to icons and I want to search for temperature. And I'm going to go ahead and select this first one here. And all I have to do is go to HTML and then copy the HTML for this. Go back here, go ahead and paste it in. And underneath this icon, I'm going to create a paragraph element just like so. Pass in temperature here, followed by a colon. And then I want to dynamically render the current temperature. So I'll use data.main.temp, and then I'm also going to put degrees Fahrenheit at the end because I have it set to imperial. So now if I go ahead and enter Los Angeles and say get weather, it's going to dynamically render the city and the country. It's going to show our Font Awesome icon and the current temperature in imperial units of Los Angeles in the United States. So what I'm going to do is paste in the rest of the code, and it's pretty much exactly the same as what I just showed you guys, except I'm going to be showing the description of the weather here, the humidity, and the wind speed. So now if I go ahead and enter Los Angeles again, we're going to be getting the temperature weather condition here, which is hazy, the humidity percentage, and the wind speed, just like so. And all of these are simply font awesome icons. And the last thing we need to do is set up the code for our catch block. And this catch block is going to run if there's an error with our API or any errors fetching the data or anything like that. So what we want to do is pass our error to our catch here, use our weather result variable again, target our inner HTML, make this equal to backticks, and we're going to create another basic paragraph element using HTML here. And what we want to do is say error colon, and then we want to dynamically display our error dot message. So let's say I go ahead and mess up the API key. For example, I get rid of the last character here, and I try and refresh this and enter Los Angeles again and click get weather. It's gonna go down to our catch block since our API is not working correctly, since we have the incorrect key, and say error, and then present us with our error. And in this case, it thinks the city is not found, which is actually not true because this API key doesn't actually work correctly because it isn't correct. So make sure to really look at what you're doing. If you do have an error, and you can always reach out to me down below in the comments if you can't figure it out. But I'm gonna go ahead and fix this now and refresh this. Congratulations, you just created an awesome weather application where you can dynamically render weather information using the free to use open weather API. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and reach out to me directly down below through the comments. I hope this video helped out, and thanks for watching.